Hello and welcome to a new and improved episode of the DudeCast podcast. I'm your host, as always, Norman Dexter, and welcome to a new video version of the podcast. So now you don't just have to listen to me, now you get to see my ugly mug. Hopefully you enjoy. So it's been a little more than a month since my last episode. I think my last episode was sometime after the election, the 2020 election, or whenever you're watching this. And I got pretty busy throughout the rest of December 2020, and then just as busy in January 2020. I've been making up for lost time during the pandemic. I mean, the pandemic is still going on, COVID-19 and all that, but I have been spending a lot of my time with friends and family, and safely, of course, masked up and social distanced and so on. But I've been taking time to really enjoy myself and build up my book in terms of training and nutritional coaching and so on and so forth, dealing with clients and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Still no job in terms of working for a company, just kind of doing my own thing as I was before, with now upwards of 300 or more job applications that have gone out unsuccessfully. Which again, I've complained several times in previous episodes about how ridiculous I think it is that you can have a master's and 10 years experience in your field and there's just nothing available to you. But I'm sure that's the same thing that people in 2007, 8, and 9 thought during the Great Recession. So just trying to stay patient and prepare for all outcomes, which kind of leads me to the topic on today's podcast. One of the reasons why I haven't been recording any of these is just because I haven't, there just hasn't been, there's been too much bullshit in the news to cover. And plus, I don't want these podcasts to be all entirely about current events because I want them to be more timeless. I want people to be able to listen to them, 10 years from now, 10 days from now, 10 months from now, and still be able to get something out of it. Whereas I'm talking about the bullshit going on in current politics or whatever, it kind of gets lost. And, somebody 10 months from now or even 10 days from now may not find interest in it. And I want people to listen to these. I want people to get something out of these. And so, hence the display and the video so that hopefully it's a bit more appealing and people can get more out of it. But preparing for all outcomes is what I said a moment ago. And I think it's really important to think about because it has a lot of weight behind it, that statement. I like listening every now and then to Jocko Willink's monologue about good. And whenever I hear that, I think of Donald Glover or Childish Gambino, however you may know him. But his stand-up comedian name, his real name, Donald Glover, the name he uses when he acts in shows like Community or when he does his stand-up comedy routines as Donald Glover, he has a bit where he hears some really bad news about a relative of his who wronged him in the past. And when the relative calls him and tells him about this bad news, Donald says to him, with his eyes wide open, he goes, "Good." And that is what I think of every time I hear Jocko Willink talk about good. Now, for those of you who don't know, I highly suggest you look up on YouTube the little monologue that Jocko has released with amazing video and audio editing about the word good. And what Jocko talks about, and for those of you who don't know, Jocko Willink is a former Navy SEAL who has this whole movement on discipline equals freedom, so on and so forth. He's a really cool guy. And, he's one of those people who will get up every morning at 4:30 and work out and then go about his day doing what he has to do. And he's one of those motivational people like David Goggins and a few others who are just always used as a source of inspiration and motivation for people to look out for. And so this monologue he goes through called Good. The idea is whenever something goes wrong, his response is always, good. Didn't get the job you wanted. Good. Didn't get the grade you wanted. Good. Didn't hit your PR today like you expected. Good. didn't get your promotion, didn't get the mission that you wanted, or deployed on the mission that you were expecting to go on that you've been preparing months for, didn't get the project that you were bidding for. Good. The relationship you were in didn't work out. Good. Now, why is this good? Why are all these bad things that are happening good? And Jocko reasons that if you can say the word good, that means you're still alive. That means you can improve. That means whatever happened, whatever bad thing that you perceive to be happening is, you can find a way to make something more out of it. A good example is a relationship that comes to an end. If a relationship comes to an end, rather than blaming or putting at fault somebody in the relationship, you can look at yourself inside, introspectively, and you can figure out, okay, this came to an end. How can this be a good thing? How can I turn this into something worthwhile for me? How can I bring meaning from this? Particularly if you did not get closure with that person. And so you're left to look within and see, okay, where could I have gone wrong? Where could I have fucked up? Or even, maybe I did a decent job, but could I have done better? Here's the thing. You can always find something that you did better. Because the fact of the matter is, the relationship came to an end. That means something was wrong. You could have been perfect the whole time. But here's the thing. Maybe there were some red flags you missed in the beginning that in the future you'll recognize and not even go through with the relationship because you realize, oh, that happened once before. And even though I was perfect as we continued forward together, because of that red flag that that person was exhibiting, there's a term limit on this relationship. And so you can start to recognize and build your filter. Maybe even raise your standards. You can become better. And so for the next relationship, you'll be more aware of that. You'll know who you are a little bit better. You'll be more aware of your needs and whether or not the person that you are vetting and courting in that moment will fulfill those needs. Or your filter will ding, 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 alarms go off, hey, this is a problem. Now, that doesn't mean you just need to back up and say, fuck it, I can't be with this person. No, no, no. That means, oh, this happened once before. I should bring that up to them and tell them, hey, this happened in this way, in a previous circumstance I was in. I want to address it now with you because if things continue like last time, well, this relationship is terminal. That's a problem. So the word good. You can find good in anything. Something I pride myself on is always seeing the good in people. Even the worst people you can imagine, the worst people in your life, I always try to see the good, give them the benefit of the doubt, glass half full, optimistic point of view. Try to be a realist at the same time, because the more pragmatic you are, the happier you'll be. And again, you have to be practical if you're going to, wait for it, prepare for all outcomes. Now, that can mean a lot. We were just talking about relationships. So preparing for our outcomes could mean a lot of things. It could mean preparing for the relationship to come to an end. And I think everyone, whether you're married or not, whether you have kids or not, I think everyone should keep a piece of themselves in their mind, fully aware of the fact that this may not be forever. Now, I know there's this whole thing about marriage and this whole thing about relationships that if you love someone, you'll be with them forever. But the fact of the matter is, you do not know what the future holds. Now, that may not mean they will leave you or betray you or cheat on you. That doesn't mean that. It could mean they could die prematurely from cancer, a car accident, a mugging gone wrong. You don't know. But you do know that there is a chance you'll be grieving that person, either from a death or from a loss wherein they are no longer in your life. You don't know where this is going to come from, but you know that there's a very high possibility that it's possible. In fact, in a lot of cases, it's almost guaranteed. And that's the problem. People don't want to think about that. They want to think their love is forever. They want to think they're going to live forever. No, none of us are making it out alive. And the thing is, your partner might not outlive you. If you're lucky, Cool. You're together 67 years, live happily, and you know what? You die the same day at the same time. Great. The Notebook. Perfect. Beautiful ending. But the chances of that happening are very slim. Now, what can you do about it? Well, you can prepare for all outcomes. That doesn't mean you sit there and you write up this game plan for if your partner dies, if they betray you and leave you. That's not what you do. No. You just make sure to remind yourself every now and then that you're aware of that possibility. And it's not to be cryptic or pessimistic. It's just to be prepared. To prepare for all outcomes. The 5 P's. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. Half of that's a joke, half of that's real, my friends. How do you prepare for something like that? Well, you prepare for it by reminding yourself that it's a possibility. And here's the key. If you remind yourself that this might not be forever, all of a sudden, it becomes something more valuable to you. You cherish this person in your life more. You cherish your time with them more. And you get further and further away from taking that person for granted. There is nothing worse than taking your loved ones for granted. I promise you, there is nothing worse than taking them for granted. Because then one day, when that time comes, when they betray and leave you, or they die and you're left to grieve, any point in your relationship, if you are to grieve that person in any way, shape, or form, if you took them for granted, that grief will consume you. That grief will overtake every bit of who you are, and your entire life will fall to the wayside because this will be the only thing that you can think about. I don't care how built up the rest of your life is. I don't care how successful your career is or how good your other relationships are. I don't care what else is going on. If that person that you love more than anything on this earth, if you take them for granted and they are no longer in your life, they are removed from your life, however that may be, grief will consume you because you will always regret having taken that person for granted. I guarantee you that. And that is one regret I personally refuse to allow in my life. So I prepare for every outcome. I remind my partners about how much I love them. I remind them how much they mean to me. And I tell them a different reason every day why I love them, why I cherish them, why they're amazing, why they're incredible. Completely unprompted. It's not Valentine's Day. It's not their birthday. It's not our anniversary. No. If I am with somebody, I am telling them their worth in my eyes every day. And that's just not, oh, you're pretty, oh, you're beautiful, or you're handsome, oh, you're this, you're that. No. Those are nice, yes. But finding small, subtle ways, the little things each day, and telling your partner how much you appreciate that about them and how much you appreciate them and that they are a part of your life. Those are the little nuggets that add up to something magnificent over days, weeks, months, years, and decades to come. It makes all the difference in the world, and I really need you to understand that. The other aspect is you should communicate this with your partner. You should absolutely communicate with them, hey, I know that there's a chance something can happen. Again, grief in some way, death or loss of the person from your life, whatever it is. Affirm to that person, reassure that person, you will be okay. You may very well not be. But I cannot begin to explain to you how much it will mean to them to know that if anything ever happened to them, whether they were to want to leave or whether they were to die, it would be so reassuring to that person to know that you will be okay without them, that you will find a way to move on and continue living without them. A truly good person, somebody who is worthwhile in your life and worth having in your life, will appreciate that sentiment. Because the thing of it is, if you see marriage, if you see a relationship, if you see kids or any of these additions to your relationship, if you see them as the glue that holds you together, you're very wrong. We are free, completely and utterly, to do as we please. Free will is always present. And if you think a ring or a child or bills is going to keep that relationship together, you are wrong. If the relationship goes bad, each person has the right to leave at any point. And it might not even be bad for reasons that you caused. Maybe the person just falls out of love. You need to understand that that's okay and that's their right. They owe you nothing. Absolutely nothing is owed to you in this life. Nothing. All the more reason to cherish and love that person, to remind them of their value to you. Because then they realize, wow, this motherfucker really appreciates me. This motherfucker really cares about me. And then two things can happen. Say they do fall out of love. They will respect you enough to tell you the truth. And then move forward from there. It might be a divorce. It might be marriage counseling. You don't know. But you do know that you have demanded the respect by loving and cherishing and caring for this person. You have put forth this idea that, hey, I want this, and I love you, and I care for you. And because of that, I want what makes you happiest. If that's not me, let's figure that out. Maybe you can. Maybe marriage counseling or some further form of communication and endeavor that you two embark on together. Maybe it fixes the issue. Maybe it addresses it. I don't know. Or maybe you get divorced or separated or what have you. Maybe that's the outcome, which is fine. Again, that person owes you nothing. And you have to remember that. Prepare for all outcomes. Doesn't mean it has to be a bad one. Just because it's not what you wanted and not what you expected does not mean it's bad. Prepare for all outcomes. I'm telling you, these are the things that you should be thinking about moving forward in your career and in your finances. This week, I have to put in a new HVAC system. Tonight, actually, I have to put in a new HVAC system in my house. It's going to cost $5,000. It's a lot of money. But I have an emergency fund. I can pay that. I can make it work. Why? Because I planned for this outcome. I prepared for this outcome. Does it suck? Yeah. But so does getting $500 electric bills because your heater is a piece of dog shit. So again, you're presented with a circumstance. You're presented with parameters to work within. You make a decision. And that decision becomes all that much less stressful and all that easier to make because you have, what is it? Prepared for all outcomes. Some bullshit happens? Good. Fucking deal with it. Address the problem. Critical thinking, problem solving skills. They fucking matter. With your finances, with your career, with your education, with your relationships. And don't confuse everything I said earlier for just your significant other. It could be your friendships. It could be your family relationships. It could be your coworkers' relationships. Okay? The thing is, to different degrees, this shit matters. Good example is with your coworkers. Maybe you like talking shit. Well, if you like talking shit behind someone's back, what if that gets around and that person finds out you were saying that? That might be a problem. Prepare for all outcomes. Maybe if you're going to talk shit, you talk shit in a way that you don't mind if they hear it because, hey, it might be fun, it might be banter, might not be a problem. Talk shit in a way that you wouldn't mind if the person was right there listening to you as you talk about them. Love your parents while they're around. Love your siblings while they're around. Cherish the time that you have. When you're prospering, when you are in abundance, you have a job, you have health insurance, everything is good, everyone's in good health, enjoy and cherish that. But also remember that it's not guaranteed the next day. You might lose your job the next day. You might lose your health the next day. You don't know. Prepare for all outcomes. Now, you can never be prepared for everything. But I'll tell you what, you can look at a lot of the big pieces in your life and think, what would happen if this went bad? What would I do then? How can I make this burden easier to bear if it were to come? And that's important. That's important. I brought my book again. I wrote some stuff in it. Now, this has to be a short one today. I'm not going to talk much more, but I think there's a few things I should mention in here. There's this idea that I like to subscribe to, that to be ordinary is the most effortless way to live your life. That normality is conformity to the herd. And for those of you who know me, my slogan has always been, I'm not normal, I'm Norman. Because I've always strayed from the path. I've always done my own thing. It's how it's always been my whole life. And it's given me some grief. It really has. But I've never been normal. I've always been Norman. And that's something I am very proud of in myself. Because the fact of the matter is, you can be full grown, growing old, and still be a fucking child. A child blames others for their problems, never takes responsibility for their part in things. Like I mentioned earlier, when a relationship comes to an end, you always play a part, no matter what. Even if you, air quotes, did nothing wrong, you had a part to play. Own that shit. Whether you were right or wrong, own your part. Because it's going to go a long way in figuring out how to make sure that that shit doesn't happen again, or rectifying the situation you currently find yourself in. A child will ignore the monotonous and the routine in favor of pleasure and entertainment. A child lacks discipline. What does discipline mean, first and foremost? Again, I'll reference Jocko. He says how discipline equals freedom. What does that mean? See, I subscribe to the idea also that motivation and willpower are bullshit. Motivation is to present a motive. You want to be healthy? You got to work out and eat right. That's a motive. So motivation is to present a motive to somebody. Motivation does not mean it is encouraging to do something. That's not what motivation means. That's how it's presented to you. That's not what it means. Same thing with willpower. Willpower is this thing that if you don't have it, you won't be able to complete anything. Again, bullshit. Willpower and motivation are what get you started. They present an idea to you. The motivation, the motive is presented to you. And willpower says, I will do that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to complete that for myself. I'm going to commit to this thing. But then it stops there. Your ability to keep going and following through, to have that commitment, that's discipline. Now, here's another thing. You hear the word discipline and you think a person who works hard, who's dedicated to their craft, right? Well, if you think about it in the sense of a child, discipline is correcting their behavior. Discipline is seen as a punishment, right? You're disciplining that child. No. There's a much bigger difference between discipline and punishment. Discipline is the correction of behavior for what is best for the person. So for me, for instance, I discipline myself, meaning if I don't engage in a routine that effectively addresses my needs day to day, cooking my meals, setting up my clothes for the next day, brushing my teeth before I go to bed, getting to bed at a decent hour, lessening my screen time at night so I can get a good night's sleep, waking up at the same time every day. If I don't have that routine, my disciplinary action is I feel like shit. Meaning, there's no one to discipline me but myself because I'm an adult. I'm not a kid anymore. There's no one to guide me. Now, maybe if I have a partner, that person would guide me. That person would provide me daily disciplines, particularly if you're in the kink space. Hint, hint, wink, wink. But, again, the idea behind discipline is doing what's best for you and your life and the natural progression of where you want to be versus where you are now. Discipline is important because discipline will afford you the freedoms to do whatever you want with your life. Discipline in finances, discipline in your relationships, discipline in your personal health and hygiene. Discipline will afford you the opportunity to, when something comes along, when an opportunity presents itself, discipline will afford you the ability to take advantage of that opportunity. Because everything else in your life has been built up to this point. These routines, these monotonous tasks day to day, they prepared you for all outcomes. They took you to a place where when opportunity was presented before you, you had prepared for this outcome, and so you could take that opportunity by the fucking nuts and progress forward toward where you want to be. And lastly, being a child is unattractive, and it weighs heavier the longer you get to know someone. You cannot have a relationship with someone like this, no matter how good looking or how much money they have. It is unattractive to be a child. Somebody who lacks discipline, someone who does not take responsibility for their actions, right or wrong. Do not be or date a child. And I mean that in the metaphorical sense, and, don't be a fucking pedo. That would be great. Sorry, couldn't stop myself from making the pun, but you know what I mean. There are a lot of grown man and lady babies out there. Do not be one. Do not date one. Try your best to not work with one, because they will suck the life out of you. There's a reason parents are always tired when they have a child. Children have a parasitic relationship with their parents at the start of their life. From the time they are in the womb until they are self-sufficient, they are parasitic. That is the relationship that a child has with their parent. What does the parent get out of it? Sure, there's the love, there's the care, there's the, oh my God, I made this creature, this is my legacy, this is this mini-me that is going to continue on living after I am long gone. Yeah, there's that shit. But there's also the potential for the relationship you can have with that child moving forward once they are self-sufficient. You're investing in that child's future, giving that child the best life they can give, so that you can see the fruits of your labor and their successes. Until then, it's a very parasitic relationship where they will take, and not give all that much in return. There will be times where they have a piano recital, or they get good grades, or they win that soccer game with a goal-winning kick. Whatever it is, there'll be pride and other emotions that will say, yeah, I'm doing a good job as a parent. But otherwise, it's a lot of take, and you got to be ready for that as a parent. Is that really what you want out of your friendships, your work relationships, and your relationship with your significant other? I don't think so. So again, you have to prepare for all outcomes. Because if you do, you'll have a much more fulfilling life, because you'll be able to take opportunity by the balls when it comes, and you'll be able to have a better filter for all the bullshit. You'll be much happier. I promise. Has to be a short one today. I got places to be, things to do. It's about 30 minutes. I think that's adequate for my first podcast back. I'll try to post more of these. Hopefully you guys like the new video. Hopefully you like the new format. And we'll see what else I can bring you. But as for today, I think that's good. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Have a great one.